Boys, girls, babes, welcome back to the Janaea Talks Caps podcast. And ooh boy, are we having fun yet. First of all, a huge shout out and congratulations to the Washington Nationals, who won the World Series this week for the first time in their franchise's history. I had never really been a Nationals fan, really only because I had never watched them play very much at all. I'm not really big into baseball. I mean, I played baseball myself for over 20 years and I'm pretty damn good at it. But I mean, I'm not really big into watching baseball, especially not regular season baseball. Being from Canada, I'll get into it in the playoffs whenever the Blue Jays are in, or whenever the Seattle Mariners are in, since I'm from the West Coast. A lot of Mariners fans here in Vancouver, British Columbia, and obviously a lot of Blue Jays fans as well, but I've never really watched it in the regular season, and heading into the playoffs this year, I needed somebody to cheer for since both the Blue Jays and the Mariners suck, so I thought, hey, why not hop on this Washington Nationals bandwagon since so many of my Caps fan friends are also Nats fans? Why not hop on the bandwagon and support them? And so hop on the bandwagon I did. And babes, I can tell you I am so glad that I was along for this ride with you all because it was amazing. I really did fall in love with the Nats throughout this postseason. Just seeing how they play the game, how resilient they are, and how much fun they have as well. Does that sound familiar? The Nats have even admitted themselves that they took more than a few pages out of the Washington Capitals book as they watched the Caps win the Stanley Cup in 2018, and many of the Nats players are good friends with many of the Caps players as well. So it's sort of a natural synergy. Anyways, I love the way that the Nats play, and besides, they used to be the Montreal Expos, so they're practically Canadian anyways, right? So it makes total sense for me to cheer for them. But yes, the Caps broke the curse for all of Washington in 2018, it seems, as they, of course, won the Stanley Cup. And now in 2019, we have the Washington Mystics, who became WNBA champions, and now we have the Washington Nationals, who have won the World Series. So that settles it. DC is officially Titletown, District of Champions. It's kind of crazy how one team just, like I said, it's almost like they break the curse, and then it's like the floodgates are open, and suddenly all of these other DC teams are having so much success as well. It's pretty cool to see, and I'm very happy for all of my friends who are Caps fans, who are also Nats fans, and just Washington DC fans in general. It's well deserved. And yeah, District of Champions. That is the new name, the new slogan for Washington, D.C. No longer will we be made fun of in the playoffs for any sport other than perhaps, of course, those Washington Redskins, if they ever make it to the playoffs. But anyways, the other reason, getting back to the hockey here, the other reason that we're all having mucho fun right now is that this Washington Capitals team is very, very good. Let's discuss, shall we? So the Caps, they were in Toronto, self-anointed center of the universe, as far as hockey is concerned, even though they haven't won the Cup in approximately 350 million years, but that's none of my business. They are, like I said, self-anointed center of the hockey universe. Anyways, the Caps were in Toronto, center of the hockey universe, for the conclusion of a season-long 5-game road trip. They had fared excellently on the road trip so far, and with a win in Toronto, they would finish the road trip 4-0-1, taking 9 of a possible 10 standings points. So that's pretty good. Your average NHL team would probably aim for 6 of 10 points and call it a raging success, but the Caps are not your average NHL team. And win in Toronto is exactly what the not your average NHL team Washington Capitals would do, beating the Leafs 4-3 in overtime on Alex Ovechkin's second goal of the night. But we'll get to the full game recap in just a tick here. First, let's talk some numbers. The Capitals, by all of the strength of schedule metrics, they had the second toughest schedule in October of any NHL team. Of any team in the entire National Hockey League, they had the second toughest schedule in the month of October. They were playing against a lot of very good teams, a lot of road games, a lot of back-to-backs, really just a lot of opportunities to be made to look stupid or to fuck up or to shit the bed completely. Second toughest schedule in the league up to this point. Okay, Okay, and so what did the Capitals do with that? Well, I'm glad you asked. All they did was completely dominate everyone and set the franchise records for wins and points in the month of October. That's all. That's all they did. Like I said, the Caps finished their season-long road trip 4-0-1, 9 of a possible 10 standings points. Overall, they're a ridiculous 7-1-1 on the road so far this season. That's the best in the league, and it also conjures up quite a bit of nostalgia as far as how utterly dominant the Caps were on the road in the 2018 playoffs, en route, of course, to winning the franchise's first Stanley Cup. Road dominance is a very good sign and a pretty damn good indicator that a team will likely be able to go deep into the playoffs, barring any unforeseen circumstances such as injuries to guys like TJ Oshie and Michael Kempny. But hell, even with a bunch of injuries to key guys, Backstrom and Kuznetsov among others, as well as a suspension to Tom Wilson, even with all of that, the Caps were still able to win the Stanley Cup in 2018, thanks in large part to their dominance on the road. So it's certainly a very good sign here as we move forward. The Washington Nationals as well, taking a page out of the Caps book. They were dominant on the road. They won every single game in the World Series on the road. They won 4 games on the road. It's the first time that's ever happened in World Series history. It's actually the first time that that's ever happened, not only in the MLB, but in the NBA or NHL as well. No team has ever won all 4 games on the road in a 7-game series, so pretty amazing. Anyways, back to hockey again. Overall, the Caps are currently first place not only in the entire Eastern Conference, but also in the entire National Hockey League as well, with a whopping 21 standings points already. They are on pace for 123 points over the course of the full 82-game season. For reference, last season's supposed greatest team ever, the 2018-2019 Tampa Bay Lightning, they finished last season with 128 points. The Caps are not at all far off that pace right now. Of course, the Caps probably won't get swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs either. So there are some differences between that Tampa team and this Washington team, thankfully, for us Caps fans. The point is, this Caps team is good, really good. In fact, they still, of course, have longtime superstars Alex Ovechkin, who has 11 goals already and will probably lead the National Hockey League in scoring once again this season, which would make it the 3rd straight season and 7th time in the last 8 seasons in which he has done so. They still have Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov, TJ Oshie, Braden Holtby, and of course John Carlson, who is going to win the Norris Trophy this season, and maybe even the Hart or the Art Ross at this pace. I doubt that he, or any defenseman for that matter, can keep up this type of an absolutely torrid scoring pace. But boy, would it be something if he could. Paul Coffey, by the way, he says that Johnny C can put up 100 points this season. So that's one hell of a vote of confidence from a Hall of Famer. And yes, it's these high-flying, high-scoring superstar players who have the Caps sitting first place in goals scored this season, with a whopping 53 goals for already on the young campaign. But it's perhaps the changes to the team's bottom 6 forward group and the bottom half of their defense as well, which have made the biggest difference so far from last season to this season. The Ovechkins are always going to Ovechkin, and the Backstroms are always going to Backstrom. This we know, and this we expect. They did it last season, they did it every season before that one, and they're doing it again this season. So there's not much difference season over season where that's concerned. It's always an A+ from the Caps superstars. But like I said, the bottom half of this lineup is where the real improvements have been made from last season to this season. For one thing, a couple of guys who we traded for in season last season, Carl Hagelin and Nick Jensen, have both made a huge positive difference. And then the changes that general manager Brian McClellan made to his roster this offseason, shipping out Matt Niskanen, who had become a liability on the ice, as much as I hate to say it because I love the guy, and then bringing in Radko Gudas, and then signing forwards Garnet Hathaway and Brendan Leipzig. My goodness, what a world of difference it has made. We've talked about it so much already, but this is a way better team in so many ways than the Washington Capitals team that took to the ice last season. And, last season's team was pretty damn good, so this is really saying something. But this season's version of the Caps, I believe, has a chance to do something really special once again. But anyways, Before we could take over the world, we first had to take over Scotiabank Arena in Toronto on a Tuesday night. The Leafs have been playing some shitty hockey this season after again losing to the Boston Bruins in yet another first-round series in last season's playoffs. The heat has been turning up a bit on Toronto as the Leafs' once fresh-faced young core now have a few years' worth of experience, as well as a John Tavares and a Jake Muzzin to be the steadying veteran presence along with it. And yet, they still lost in the first round again, in the same fashion again, and to the same team again. So there's more than a few questions floating around about whether or not this Leafs group has what it takes. And for the record, my unprofessional opinion is a hard no, they do not. And leading up to Tuesday's game, reporters in Toronto, they asked Stanley Cup champion, Conn Smythe winner, and longtime captain of your Washington Capitals for his opinion on whether or not he thinks the Leafs have what it takes. His answer, as is always the case with Ovi, was as brutally honest and blunt as it was entertaining. He basically said that he wishes them luck, but that if they want to win a Stanley Cup, then they're going to have to stop playing for themselves, / stop playing to pad their own personal stats and start playing good hockey as a team instead. And you know what? He is 100% right. Even Leafs coach Mike Babcock agrees with him, saying that comments like that, and I quote, always sting way more when they're right. TSN broadcasters were postulating that maybe Ovechkin's comments will be the best thing that ever happened for Mike Babcock and the Leafs, because it's one thing for Babcock to keep telling his team to play the game a different way, but when they hear it coming from a fellow player, a superstar player, the guy who has been the biggest name in the sport for 15 years now, the guy who will probably be the NHL's all-time leader in goals by the time everything is said and done, when they hear it coming from Ovi, it counts more. It carries more weight, and so maybe this will be a good thing for the Leafs. I don't buy it, however, because I think the Leafs' young players are just so stuck up and full of themselves. They're so far up their own asses that they won't listen to anybody. They clearly don't listen to their coach, who is a legend, by the way, and he might get fired because of it. And now with Ovechkin's comments, rather than taking it as constructive and turning it into something positive moving forward, Leafs assistant captain Austin Matthews was almost defiant when asked about Ovi's comments, asking the reporter who dared ask him the question, how many times Washington lost to Pittsburgh before winning the Cup. Well, you know, that's kind of the point, Austin, is we lost to Pittsburgh 3 times before we beat them the 4th time and went on to, yes, win the Stanley Cup. We also won several playoff series in between those losses to Pittsburgh, so it wasn't as if we were shooting blanks. The Leafs, in Austin Matthews' 3-year tenure, have, and this is funny, lost to Ovechkin's very own Washington Capitals in the first round in Matthews' first year, and lost to the rival Boston Bruins in the first round in each of the last 2 years. So they've already shit the bed twice against the Bruins, and he's only 3 years in. Ouch. You get one more mulligan, buddy, and then you're officially worse off than the Caps were against the Penguins. And you also have to go and win the Cup once you've finally beaten the Bruins, otherwise it really doesn't count for shit and you have no leg to stand on here. Sorry, eh? The point is, Matthews, he responded like the douchebag that he is, rather than taking Ovechkin's comments constructively and building something positive off of it. This is why, and you can come back for as long as you'd like and quote me on this, this is why the Leafs will not win a cup. Their star players have kind of a shitty attitude, and their supposed savior, John Tavares, has only ever won one playoff series, and it was against the Florida Panthers, so it really doesn't even count. Anyways, we really should not be surprised that Matthews is a douche, given that he's currently facing criminal charges in the state of Arizona as a result of him dropping his pants and gesturing at a female security guard parked alone in her car in the middle of the night. That might have been a clue. This guy's an asshat. Anyways, we now know to hide our daughters, sisters, mothers, and grandmothers when we go to Toronto, and besides, Matthews was forced to look himself and his pedophile mustache in the mirror and wonder what went wrong after Alex Ovechkin got the last laugh in overtime on Tuesday night. The Caps And Ovechkin in particular proved that Ovechkin's comments were exactly on point in this game, beating the Maple Leafs to a bloody pulp the way that a true contender does, while the Leafs looked lost in their defensive end and tried to play cutesy shinny and pad their own personal stats at the other end. It led to a number of giveaways for the Maple Leafs, and despite a whopping 8 power plays for Austin Matthews and friends, they could not win the game against the bigger, stronger, meaner, tougher Capitals team. Also, I find that the Leafs fans who were booing the refs in this game, I find this absolutely hysterical. You had 8 power plays. 8. I mean, what more do you want, really? Should the ref also have picked up the puck and delivered it to the back of the net for you? Like, come on. The Caps were great on the penalty kill, again, as true contenders are. Take notes, Maple Leafs. And they had to be great on the penalty kill because Tim Peel is an absolute shit show out there. I always shudder when I see his name on the lineup before the game. I don't think he thinks of himself so much as a referee as he thinks of himself more as the judge, jury, and executioner. He always likes to try and have a large hand in whatever's going on, and he tried it again on this night against the Leafs, but it did not work. The Caps, for the most part, killed off all of the penalties, holding the Leafs, again, self-anointed, vaunted power play to a measly 1 for 8. It was fun. Leafs fans were booing their own guys yet again. A common theme in Scotiabank Arena this season is the Leafs have now lost 5 of their first 9 games at home. What must it be like to start the season with 9 home games in October? We sure as hell would not know as Capitals fans. Anyways, the Caps, like I said, they were excellent on the penalty kill. To face 8 power plays and only give up 1 goal, that's really good. And the Caps as well were very aggressive in this one physically, with pretty much everybody wearing an away jersey, doling out huge hit after huge hit after huge hit. Ovechkin, as usual, murdered about 3 different people. Same for Tom Wilson, who knocked Jake Muzzin out of the game with a clean hit. Wilson also injured Tyson Barrie later in the game as well, but he was assessed a 2-minute minor for that one. However, upon review after the game, everyone agrees that it wasn't deserving of anything more than just the 2 minutes. Tyson is apparently just a precious little porcelain doll, which probably explains why Kyle Dubas traded for him. That is the Leafs' MO, after all. TJ Oshie drilled some people. Garnet Hathaway drilled some people. Hathaway also laughed in Austin Matthews' face when Matthews was trying to act tough, and then Matthews promptly turned and skated away once he realized that it was Garnet Hathaway. He was getting the hell out of Dodge on that one. Even Nicholas Backstrom and Evgeny Kuznetsov were throwing their weight around a lot in this one. But that's what happens when your team has an identity. Everybody buys in and is pulling on the same rope. Everybody plays with the same intensity and ferociousness to their game. That's what makes a great team. That is what the Leafs are not. Anywho, like we alluded to earlier, Alex Ovechkin definitely backed up his pregame comments in this game, and he let his play do the talking for him on this night in Toronto. Ovi, he went full beast mode in this one, which we probably expected. I definitely expected it, in part because of his propensity for always backing up his words with action, and an even larger part because his good buddy, 15-year-old Alex Luey, who is battling a particularly difficult form of cancer, he was going to be in the building for this game. So you'll remember that the first time that Luey ever got to see his idol Ovechkin play live at a game in Toronto back in 2017, Ovechkin promised him that he would score a goal for him, and instead of stopping at just 1, Ovi scored a hat trick for him instead in the Caps' win over the Leafs. On this night, Ovechkin scored 2 goals and added 2 primary assists for 4 points total. His first goal tied the game in the third period, and his second goal won the game for Luey and the Caps in overtime. A wicked one-time blast that rocketed top corner past Frederik Andersen. So 4 points for Ovi in the game. Ovi has just torched the Maple Leafs in his career. He scored 41 goals in 50 career games against the Leafs and 24 goals in 25 games in Toronto. It's not hard to imagine why Alex Luey fell in love with him. Ovi also caught and surpassed Hall of Famer Luc Robitaille on the NHL's all-time goals scored list in this game, netting his 668th and 669th career goals to pass Robitaille, who finished his own career with 668 goals. Ovi now sits alone in 12th place on the NHL's all-time goals list, and as you can imagine, continues to quickly climb it. I'm going to predict that by this season's end, Ovechkin is going to sit at 7th all-time, which is currently held by Mike Gartner with 708 goals, and that's because I do think Ovechkin is going to score 50-plus goals again this season. He is currently on pace to score 64 goals this season, which would put him at 722 total for his career so far. You think Wayne Gretzky is starting to get nervous? But yeah, I do think that Ovechkin, by the end of this season, is going to sit at 7th all-time, which again, currently held by Mike Gartner, 708 goals. Anyways, as Ovechkin said after the game, when he scores in Toronto these days, every goal is always for his buddy Alex Luey. And after the game, Ovechkin and the Capitals again invited Luey into their locker room, and they awarded him with the hard hat, which they give to the most important player from that day's game. They gave it to Luey to a chorus of cheers, which was obviously very well deserved. Young Alex Luey is fighting a brave battle that no child, no person in general, but especially no child should ever have to fight. And his courage throughout his journey has been nothing short of inspiring to all of us. So we wish you the best, Alex Luey, and we are all here to support you and cheer you on. And on that note, before we sign off for the day, I did just want to talk John Carlson for a moment here, because the dude deserves another shout out. Listen, John Carlson, what more can we really say? I feel as if we're talking about him after every single game, and for good reason, because he's on the score sheet multiple times in seemingly every single game that the Caps play. Simply put, the dude is just a beast. Carlson has been everything and more that the Caps could have hoped for when they signed him to an 8-year, $64 million contract extension on June 24th, 2018. Approximately 2 weeks after he had helped lead the Capitals to their franchise's first Stanley Cup by leading all NHL defensemen with 20 points in 24 playoff games. He has more than lived up to his contract so far. In fact, he is making it look like an absolute bargain of a deal for the Caps. In a league where defensemen who can put up offense from the blue line are very highly sought after and therefore very highly paid, Carlson is giving the Capitals a hell of a bang for their buck. After leading all NHL defensemen with 68 points in 2017-2018, the year that the Caps won the Cup, and then signing his big money deal, all he has done since is put up another 70 points last season, and this season he's on pace to absolutely shatter that, to shatter his career best totals from the previous two seasons, as he has he does have 7 goals and 23 points already through 14 games this season, which puts him on pace for 41 goals and 135 points over the course of the 82-game slate. Of course, it's almost a certainty that this pace cannot continue for 82 games, as no one, defenseman or forward, has put up 135 points in a single season since Mario Lemieux scored 161 points in the 1995-1996 season. Lemieux obviously was a forward, while Carlson is a defenseman. The simple fact that forwards simply score much more than defensemen do, due to their position, makes keeping up the current pace even more unlikely for Carlson. But seriously, nothing is impossible with the way that he's playing. You just never know. As they pointed out with a giggle on Hockey Night in Canada the other night, 7 goals is a good total for most good defensemen in a full season. Carlson is already up to 7 goals, and he's only 14 games in. It's just ridiculous. All in all, even in the young season, it's pretty much a guarantee right now that he is going to lead all defensemen in scoring come season's end. To lead the entire league in scoring, forwards included, would probably be considered a long shot because, again, he is a defenseman. But again, I say that, with the way he's playing right now, you just never know. Anything is possible. He currently sits second only to Boston Bruins forward David Pastrnak, who has 24 points. Carlson has 23 points. It's also looking like a virtual guarantee that he's going to win the Norris Trophy this season. Unless, of course, the entire Professional Hockey Writers Association again has a collective bout of memory loss and forgets that he exists again. But it's going to be even harder to forget him this time around with how utterly dominant he's been this season. Anyway, that's all for now, Caps fans. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on pretty much anywhere and everywhere that you get your podcasts from. We are everywhere nowadays. And leave us a review if you like what you hear. We would really appreciate it. We'll talk to you all next week, hopefully with some more points in the old standings piggy bank. And like I said, like I always say, let's go Caps. And again, just one more time, just want to say a big congratulations to the Washington Nationals.